It's 2026, and some of you walked into this year with the same goals you've been carrying for 5 years. Same dreams, same excuses, different calendar. 2026 didn't magically change your life. It just exposed what you refused to change. See, the truth is painful, but it's honest. When you were struggling, nobody panicked. When you quit, nobody stopped their life. When you stayed stuck, the world kept moving. And that hurts until it frees you. Because the moment you realize nobody is watching, nobody is coming, and nobody cares the way you wish they did, you stop performing for people and you start building for yourself. Welcome to 2026, the year excuses expire and focus decides everything. Nobody cares, not about your excuses, not about your bad day, not about what you meant to do. And once you truly understand that, you gain something priceless, focus. See, most people waste their lives trying to be understood, validated, applauded. They want permission to win. They want sympathy for staying stuck. But the marketplace, life, and time don't reward intentions. They reward execution in 2026. The rules are simple. Results are respected. Stories are ignored. When you accept that nobody is coming to save you, something powerful happens. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop waiting for motivation. You stop blaming your past, your parents, the economy, or your circumstances. You realize this truth. Responsibility is not a burden, it's leverage. The moment you say, this is on me, you reclaim control. Because if it's on you, it means you can change it. And people who can change things don't complain. They build. Focus is the currency of the future. Distraction is the tax. If your attention is everywhere, your results will be nowhere. But when you decide, I'm going to master my time, my habits, my thinking, you separate yourself from the crowd without making a sound. Most people talk too much and do too little. High performers do the opposite. They work quietly. They improve privately. They let the scoreboard introduce them. Every habit you practice is casting a vote for the person you are becoming. Not next year, not someday, right now. The question isn't what you want in 2026. The question is, what are you repeatedly doing today that makes that future inevitable? Stop announcing goals. Start building systems. Stop seeking approval. Start raising standards. Because self-mastery always comes before success. If you can't control your schedule, your emotions, and your discipline, money won't fix that. It will expose it. So here's the challenge for 2026. Care less about being seen. Care more about becoming dangerous with your skills. Care less about opinions. Care more about progress. Because at the end of the day, nobody cares, and that's not an insult. It's an invitation to lock in, to focus on yourself, and to become undeniable. When you do that, you won't need attention. Attention will find you. Here's the brutal truth most people spend their entire lives running from. Nobody is thinking about you the way you think they are. Nobody wakes up worried about your potential. Nobody loses sleep over your unfinished goals. Nobody is pausing their life waiting for you to finally get serious. And that realization hurts because deep down, many of us secretly want someone to notice our struggle, to validate our effort, to say, I see how hard you're trying. But the world doesn't reward effort. It rewards outcomes. Life doesn't clap for preparation. It responds to performance. When you fail, the world keeps moving. When you procrastinate, time doesn't slow down. When you quit, the sun still rises, bills still arrive, and opportunities still go to people who showed up when you didn't. That's not cruel, that's neutral. Life isn't against you, it's not for you either. It simply responds to action. Most people waste years angry that they aren't supported, not realizing that support usually shows up after results, not before. Applause is not a prerequisite for discipline. Respect is rented, and the rent is due every single day in the form of execution. The painful part is this: no one is coming to rescue you from your habits. No one is going to knock on your door and force you to focus, to study, to train, to improve, to heal, or to grow. No one is going to live with the consequences of your choices except you. Your comfort zone will never betray you, but it will quietly rob you of everything you could have been. And once you accept that nobody cares about your excuses, something powerful happens. You stop wasting energy explaining yourself. You stop rehearsing your struggles. You stop expecting sympathy to change your circumstances. You start asking better questions. You start moving in silence. You start doing the work even when there is no audience, no recognition, no guarantee. The truth is, the world doesn't need to believe in you for you to win. It only needs you to believe in what you're willing to do repeatedly. Consistency beats confidence. Discipline outlives motivation, and focus will take you places talent never could. Most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they demand emotional rewards before producing tangible results. They want encouragement before commitment. They want validation before victory. But growth doesn't work like that. First you build in obscurity, then results introduce you. When you fully understand that nobody cares, you stop begging for permission. You stop waiting to feel ready. You stop outsourcing responsibility. You realize that the same silence you feared is the same space where greatness is built. And that's when the brutal truth becomes your greatest advantage. Because once you stop expecting the world to care, you finally start doing the things that make it impossible for the world to ignore you. The moment you take full responsibility for your life is the moment you reclaim your power. Not part of it, not some of it, all of it. Because as long as you can point to something outside of yourself as the reason you're stuck, you've also given that thing control over your future. Blame feels good in the short term. It gives your ego a place to rest. It gives your frustration a target. But blame is expensive. It costs you progress. It costs you growth. It costs you time you'll never get back. Every time you say, if only they had helped me, or if the situation were different, what you're really saying is, I don't have the power to change this. And whether that's true or not, life will treat it as true. Responsibility is different. Responsibility is uncomfortable. It removes excuses. It removes the safety net of victimhood. But it gives you something far more valuable than comfort. It gives you leverage. Because if your results are your responsibility, then so is your ability to change them. You stop waiting for conditions to improve and start improving yourself until conditions are forced to respond. Powerful people don't ask who's to blame. They ask, what's my move? They understand that life doesn't reward fairness, it rewards adaptability. They don't waste energy arguing with reality. They study it, respect it, and then work within it until they bend it in their favor. Taking responsibility doesn't mean everything that happened to you was your fault. It means everything that happens next is your assignment. You may not have chosen your starting point, but you are choosing your direction every single day through your habits, your standards, and your decisions. And those choices are shaping your future, whether you're conscious of them or not. The most dangerous lie you can tell yourself is that you still have time to get serious later. Responsibility says later is too late. Responsibility says today counts. Responsibility says the smallest disciplined actions done consistently will outperform the biggest intentions done occasionally. When you fully accept responsibility, you stop negotiating with your weaknesses. You stop lowering the standard to match your mood. You stop waiting for motivation to arrive before you act. You act first and let motivation chase you. There is no empowerment in outsourcing your life, no freedom in handing your potential over to circumstances. The more responsibility you accept, the stronger you become. The stronger you become, the fewer excuses you need. And eventually you reach a point where your environment no longer defines you, your decisions do. That's real power, not control over other people, not influence over opinions, but control over your actions when no one is watching. Control over your effort when it would be easier to quit. Control over your discipline when excuses are readily available. And once you step into that level of responsibility, your life stops feeling like something that's happening to you and starts feeling like something that's being built by you. Focus is the difference between movement and progress. You can be busy all day and still go nowhere. You can exhaust yourself responding to noise, opinions, notifications, and distractions and still end up exactly where you started. Motion feels productive, but only focus produces results. Most people don't fail because they aren't working hard. They fail because their attention is divided. They chase too many ideas, listen to too many voices, and start too many things without finishing the one thing that actually matters. Scattered effort creates scattered outcomes. You can't build momentum when your energy is constantly being reset. Momentum is born when your actions begin to compound. And compounding only happens when you stay long enough in one direction for progress to stack. Focus forces alignment. Your time, energy, and decisions stop pulling against each other and start working together. That's when small wins turn into confidence, and confidence turns into consistency. Distraction is seductive because it feels urgent. Focus is powerful because it's intentional. The world is designed to steal your attention and sell it back to you in fragments. If you don't guard your focus, someone else will gladly spend it for you. And every time you allow that, you delay the life you say you want. When you focus, you eliminate unnecessary options. You simplify decisions. You stop asking, what should I do today? And start asking, what must be done no matter how I feel? That clarity removes friction. And when friction is removed, action becomes easier, faster, and more consistent. Momentum doesn't come from massive breakthroughs. It comes from disciplined repetition, from showing up when progress feels invisible, from continuing when the excitement fades. Focus keeps you anchored during those moments. It reminds you that mastery is built in the boring, not the dramatic. The reason most people quit right before things start working, because they mistake discomfort for failure. Focus teaches you patience. It teaches you to trust the process long enough for results to catch up. It turns effort into inevitability. When your focus sharpens, your confidence changes. Not because you suddenly feel brave, but because you've proven to yourself that you can commit. And self-trust is the foundation of momentum. Once you know you won't abandon yourself, you stop hesitating. You move with certainty. Momentum is quiet at first. It doesn't announce itself. But once it starts, it's hard to stop. Focus builds that force day by day, decision by decision, choice by choice. And eventually, what once felt difficult becomes automatic. This is why focus is non-negotiable. It's not about doing more. It's about doing less, but better. It's about choosing the few actions that move the needle and executing them relentlessly. Because when focus is sustained, momentum becomes unstoppable, and progress stops being a possibility and starts becoming a pattern every single day. Whether you're aware of it or not, you are casting votes for the person you are becoming. Not with words, not with intentions, but with habits. Quiet, repetitive actions that don't feel dramatic in the moment yet are deciding your future with ruthless accuracy. Your habits don't care about your goals. They don't respond to motivation or emotion. They simply reflect your standards. What you tolerate daily becomes your identity eventually. And that identity, it'll determine the results you keep getting, no matter how badly you want something different. Most people think change happens in big moments. New years, new opportunities, big decisions. But real change happens in the ordinary, in what you do when no one is watching, in how you start your mornings, in what you choose to consume mentally, emotionally, and physically, in whether you keep promises to yourself when it would be easier not to. Every habit is a ballot. When you hit snooze, you're voting for comfort. When you show up anyway, you're voting for discipline. When you avoid the hard conversation, you're voting for convenience. When you do the work you've been postponing, you're voting for growth. These votes seem insignificant in isolation, but over time they elect your future. The problem is that habits don't punish you immediately. They reward or penalize you quietly. You don't feel the cost of bad habits until the bill comes due. And by then, most people are confused, wondering how they ended up so far from where they planned to be. But the answer has been consistent all along. The results are simply telling the truth about the votes that were cast. Good habits feel hard at first because they require you to act against your impulses. Bad habits feel easy because they align with them. But eventually, the roles reverse. Discipline becomes freedom. Structure becomes peace. And the habits you once had to force become the systems that carry you forward, even on days when motivation disappears. You don't rise to the level of your ambition. You fall to the level of your habits. And that's not discouraging, it's empowering. Because it means your future isn't dependent on luck or talent or perfect timing. It's dependent on what you repeat. The most dangerous habits aren't the obvious ones. They're the subtle ones. The habit of procrastination disguised as planning. The habit of distraction disguised as rest, the habit of complaining disguised as awareness. These habits slowly erode your standards while convincing you that you're still making progress. If you want a different life, you don't need a new personality, you need new patterns. You need to decide what kind of person you're voting for and start casting ballots that align with that identity, even when it feels inconvenient. Because one day, the results will be final. And whether you like the outcome or not, it will simply reflect the habits you practiced when you thought they didn't matter. Silence is misunderstood. People think silence means weakness, fear, or lack of confidence. In reality, silence is often the discipline of people who are building something too important to explain prematurely. Silence is not hiding. Silence is focusing. Most people announce their plans because they crave accountability, but what they really want is validation. They want the emotional reward before the work is done. And once the reward is received, urgency disappears. Silence protects momentum. It keeps your energy pointed toward execution instead of explanation. When you speak too early, you invite opinions from people who are not qualified to contribute. You invite doubt, comparison, and unnecessary pressure. Not everyone needs access to your vision. Some people can only understand results, and that's okay. Silence allows you to grow without being interrupted by noise. Growth is fragile in the beginning. Like a seed, it needs time underground. It needs darkness. It needs protection. If you keep digging it up to see if it's working, you slow the process. Silence creates the space where progress can take root without being rushed or judged. There is a certain power that comes from not needing to be seen while you are becoming, from not needing applause while you are improving, from not needing agreement while you are committed. Silence forces you to rely on discipline instead of external feedback, and that builds real confidence, the kind that doesn't disappear when opinions change. The loudest people are often the least prepared. They talk about what they're going to do because it feels like progress. But talk doesn't move the needle. Action does. Silence shifts the focus from performance to production. When you move in silence, you also avoid comparison. You stop measuring your timeline against someone else's highlight reel. You stop adjusting your pace to keep up appearances. You move at the speed required for mastery, not the speed required for approval. Silent doesn't mean isolation. It means selectivity. It means choosing mentors over crowds, process over praise, consistency over clout. It means understanding that real growth is internal before it is visible. Eventually, silence changes how you show up. You speak less but say more. You promise less but deliver more. And when the results finally surface, they don't need explanation. They speak with clarity and authority. In a world obsessed with announcing every move, silence becomes a competitive advantage. While others are talking, you are training. While others are posting, you are practicing. While others are explaining, you are executing. And when the work is done, silence is no longer necessary. Results introduce you better than words ever could. Before there is success that the world can see, there must be mastery that no one applauds. Success is never the starting point. It is the side effect. And the people who sustain it the longest are not the most talented, the luckiest, or the loudest. They are the most disciplined with themselves. Self-mastery begins where excuses end. It starts with the ability to do what needs to be done, even when it's uncomfortable, boring, or inconvenient. Most people wait until they feel ready, motivated, or inspired. But self-mastery understands a deeper truth. Feelings are unreliable, and discipline is not. If you cannot control your time, your money will control you. If you cannot control your emotions, circumstances will control you. If you cannot control your habits, your future will control you instead of the other way around. The outer world always reflects the inner one. Chaos on the inside eventually shows up as chaos on the outside. People chase success thinking it will fix their lack of structure, confidence, or purpose. But success doesn't create order. It exposes disorder. More money doesn't fix poor discipline. More attention doesn't fix insecurity. More opportunity doesn't fix inconsistency. It magnifies whatever is already there. Self-mastery is learning how to respond instead of react, how to pause instead of panic, how to choose long-term growth over short-term comfort. It is the daily practice of raising your standards to a level your old habits can no longer survive. This is why most people sabotage their biggest opportunities. They reach a level of success their self-control cannot support. They built skills faster than they built character. And without self-mastery, progress becomes unstable. True confidence doesn't come from external wins. It comes from self-trust, from knowing you will keep promises to yourself even when no one is watching, from knowing you won't abandon your principles for convenience. That kind of confidence is unshakable because it's earned internally. Self-mastery also means mastering your attention. You stop letting your emotions dictate your actions. You stop letting distractions hijack your priorities. You stop letting other people's opinions determine your path. You become intentional with what you consume, what you tolerate, and what you repeat. The greatest freedom in life is not doing whatever you want. It's being able to do what you should. And the people who reach sustainable success are not those with the most freedom early on, but those with the most discipline early on. Success comes and goes. Markets change. Trends fade. Opportunities shift. But self-mastery compounds. It makes you adaptable, resilient, and grounded no matter what environment you're in. And when you finally achieve the success you've been chasing, self-mastery is what allows you to keep it, grow it, and enjoy it without being owned by it. So as 2026 unfolds, understand this. Nothing magical is coming with it. No perfect moment, no sudden motivation, no external permission slip to become who you know you're capable of being. Nobody is watching closely enough to judge your growth, and nobody is invested enough to carry your potential for you. And that's not discouraging, it's empowering, because it means the responsibility is yours, the focus is yours, the habits are yours, and the future is yours to shape. Focus on yourself, not out of selfishness, but out of necessity. Protect your time. Guard your attention. Raise your standards. Move in silence. Master yourself before you try to master outcomes. Let 2026 be the year you stop explaining and start executing. The year you stop waiting and start building. The year you stop reacting and start deciding. Because when you commit to growth without needing applause, when you take responsibility without excuses, when you stay focused long enough for momentum to form, and when your habits start voting in your favor every single day, success doesn't need to be chased. It arrives as a consequence. And when it does, you won't need to announce it. The results will speak for you.